A cold November wind swept through downtown Chicago as Ethan Cole tightened the scarf around his 8-year-old daughter Lily. The little girl held his hand tightly while staring through the glowing restaurant windows. Inside, families laughed beneath golden chandeliers while soft jazz music floated through the air. Lily's eyes sparkled. "Dad, are we really eating here?" Ethan forced a smile even though his worn jacket and tired face made him feel painfully out of place. "You got straight A's, kiddo. Tonight, you deserve the best." But the second they stepped inside, conversations slowed. Expensive perfume mixed with the smell of steak and wine, while several wealthy guests glanced at Ethan's old boots and faded jeans. Lily noticed too. She squeezed his hand harder. A young hostess gave them a fake smile. "Reservation?" Ethan calmly shook his head. "No, ma'am. Just a table for two." Before she could answer, a sharply dressed manager walked over, his eyes scanning Ethan from head to toe with visible disgust. "Sir, this restaurant has a dress code." Ethan looked down at his clean but old clothes. "I understand, but my daughter just wanted one special dinner." The manager's voice grew louder intentionally so nearby guests could hear. "This establishment is not a shelter. I'm going to ask you to leave." Lily's face instantly dropped. A couple nearby smirked while whispering to each other. Ethan's jaw tightened, but he stayed calm. "Please, just one meal." The manager stepped closer. "Now." The entire restaurant watched as Ethan slowly nodded and took Lily's hand. Humiliation burned through him, but he refused to let his daughter see him break. As they turned toward the door, Lily whispered, "It's okay, Daddy. We can eat somewhere else." And that's when something unbelievable happened. A deep voice suddenly echoed from upstairs. "Stop them." Every head turned toward the grand staircase. An older man in a dark navy suit stood frozen halfway down the stairs, staring directly at Ethan like he'd seen a ghost. The restaurant owner himself. Silence swallowed the room. The owner rushed down the stairs so quickly that even the manager looked confused. Ethan instinctively stepped back, shielding Lily slightly behind him. But then the owner's eyes filled with emotion. "Is your name Ethan Cole?" Ethan blinked in shock. "Yes." The old man's lips trembled. "Oh my God." Guests exchanged confused looks while the manager suddenly turned pale. The owner grabbed Ethan's shoulders. "You saved my life 13 years ago." The restaurant went dead silent. Ethan stared blankly, struggling to remember. The owner looked emotional. "The highway accident during the snowstorm. My car flipped into the ditch. Everyone kept driving past me." Ethan's eyes widened slightly. Memories came flooding back. A freezing night. Screaming wind. Blood everywhere. "You pulled me out before the car caught fire," the owner whispered. "Then you disappeared before I could even thank you." The manager's face lost all color. Lily looked up at her father with wide eyes. Ethan quietly said, "I didn't know who you were." The owner turned furious. "And this man was thrown out of MY restaurant?" Nobody spoke. The rich guests who had laughed moments ago now looked deeply uncomfortable. The owner suddenly pointed at the manager. "You judged a hero by his clothes." The manager stuttered nervously. "Sir, I didn't know." "Exactly," the owner snapped. "You didn't know." Lily stared at her father like she was seeing him for the first time. Ethan lowered his eyes awkwardly, clearly uncomfortable with the attention. But the owner wasn't done. He turned toward the entire restaurant and loudly announced, "Tonight, every meal in this building is free because the man standing here taught me what real humanity looks like." Gasps filled the room. Phones immediately came out. Some people even started clapping softly. Ethan looked overwhelmed. He hated attention. But then the owner leaned closer and quietly asked something that made Ethan freeze completely. "Why didn't you ever contact me after that night?" Ethan hesitated. His voice became heavy. "Because 3 days later, my wife died." The entire atmosphere shifted instantly. Even the jazz music suddenly felt distant. The owner's expression broke with sadness. Lily slowly lowered her head. Ethan swallowed hard. "Since then, it's just been me and her." The owner looked at Lily, then back at Ethan. "And you still became the kind of father most men could never be." Ethan looked away emotionally while nearby guests watched in silence. Then the owner noticed something else. Ethan's hands were rough, cracked, bruised. "What do you do now?" Ethan hesitated. "Construction when I can get it." The owner stared at him for a long second before making a decision that nobody expected. Come with me. Ethan frowned slightly. What? Upstairs. Private office. The owner looked serious. There's something I need to show you. Lily looked nervous. Ethan almost refused. But something in the old man's eyes stopped him. As the restaurant whispered behind them, Ethan and Lily followed the owner upstairs, not knowing their entire life was about to change forever. The owner led Ethan and Lily through a quiet hallway above the restaurant where the noise downstairs slowly faded away. Framed photographs covered the walls. Celebrities, politicians, athletes, but Ethan barely looked at them. His attention stayed on Lily, who still seemed shaken from everything that had happened. The owner opened a large office door overlooking the Chicago skyline glowing against the night sky. Please sit. Ethan remained standing. Sir, you really don't have to do all this. The owner smiled sadly. After what you did for me, I haven't done nearly enough. He walked toward an old wooden cabinet and carefully pulled out a small burned object wrapped in cloth. Ethan narrowed his eyes. The owner slowly unwrapped it. A melted silver watch. Ethan instantly recognized it. His breathing stopped for a second. You still have that? The owner nodded emotionally. The firefighters found it in the snow after you dragged me out of the car. Ethan stared silently at the damaged watch while memories flooded back again. The freezing road, flames exploding behind him, thinking he might die that night. I kept this because it reminded me that strangers can save your life when the world turns dark. Lily looked between them quietly. Then the owner sat down across from Ethan. But after tonight, I realized something. Ethan frowned slightly. What? The owner folded his hands together. The man who saved me is struggling to feed his daughter, while people like me dine downstairs under chandeliers. Ethan immediately shook his head. I'm not asking for charity. I know, the owner replied softly. That's exactly why you deserve help. Ethan fell silent. Pride battled exhaustion inside him. The owner opened a folder on his desk and slid it across slowly. 3 years ago, I started a foundation for workers and single parents in this city. Ethan didn't touch the folder. Okay. I need someone to run it. Ethan looked confused. You want me to work for you? No, the owner said firmly. I want someone honest. Someone who understands struggle. Someone who risks his life for strangers without expecting applause. Ethan let out a quiet laugh of disbelief. Sir, I pour concrete for a living. And yet you have more character than half the executives I've ever met. Lily smiled slightly for the first time all night. Ethan looked at the folder carefully. The salary number alone made his chest tighten. It was more money than he'd ever seen offered in his life. This has to be some mistake. The owner leaned forward. Do you know why I recognized you instantly tonight? Ethan shook his head. Because after you saved me, I spent years trying to find you. Nobody knew your name, but I never forgot your face. Ethan's eyes widened slightly. You looked for me? For 13 years. The room went silent again. Outside, snow began falling over the city lights. The owner continued quietly. I was angry when you disappeared, but now I understand. You weren't running away from gratitude. You were surviving grief. Lily slowly rested her head against her father's arm. Ethan looked down at her and fought tears. The owner spoke gently. Your daughter deserves stability, Ethan. Ethan finally sat down. For the first time all night, the weight on his shoulders seemed visible. After my wife died, everything collapsed, he admitted quietly. Medical bills, debt, losing the house. His voice cracked slightly. Some months I had to choose between heating and groceries. Lily lowered her eyes, already knowing the truth. The owner's face hardened with emotion. And tonight my staff humiliated you because of a jacket. Ethan gave a tired smile. I'm used to people judging. Well, they judged the wrong man. Suddenly there was a knock at the office door. The nervous manager stepped inside slowly. His confidence from earlier was completely gone. Sir, I wanted to apologize. Ethan immediately stood up awkwardly. It's all right, but the manager shook his head. No, it's not. His eyes lowered in shame. I saw your clothes and decided who you were before you even spoke. The owner watched silently while the manager continued. My father worked construction too. I forgot where I came from. Ethan studied him for a second before quietly replying. Then remember from now on. The manager nodded emotionally and walked out. A deep silence followed. Then the owner smiled slightly toward Lily. Young lady, What was it you wanted to eat tonight? Lily looked shy. The chocolate cake. Everyone laughed softly. Minutes later, staff members began bringing incredible food into the office. Steaks, pasta, warm bread, sparkling drinks, and the giant chocolate cake Lily had dreamed about through the restaurant window. But what hit Ethan hardest wasn't the food. It was watching his daughter finally smile without worry. Halfway through dinner, Lily whispered something to her father. "Daddy." "Yeah. Mom would have been happy tonight." Ethan froze. Emotion filled his eyes instantly. He nodded slowly. "Yeah, kiddo, she would have." The owner quietly looked away to give them privacy. Then he reached into his pocket and handed Ethan a small silver key. Ethan frowned. "What's this?" "Apartment above the foundation office," the owner said calmly. "Fully paid for the first year." Ethan stared at him speechless. "Why are you doing all this for me?" The owner smiled gently. "Because 13 years ago, when everyone else drove past a dying stranger in the snow, one exhausted construction worker stopped his truck." Ethan looked down silently. The owner continued, "Tonight was my chance to stop driving past someone too." Ethan finally broke. Tears filled his eyes as he looked at Lily beside him. Years of pressure, fear, humiliation, and loneliness crashed down all at once. Lily hugged him tightly. The owner quietly stood and walked toward the window to give them the moment. Downstairs, the restaurant buzzed with whispers about the mysterious single father. But upstairs, for the first time in years, Ethan felt something he thought he'd lost forever. Hope. And sometimes, the world tests good people the hardest right before finally changing their lives. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to Tales of a Solo Father for more emotional cinematic stories that remind us kindness still exists in this world.